Green Finance Unit. So looking at the SDGs, we have key areas that are speaking to, for instance, you're talking sustainable cities and communities. Basically, SDGs are focused on environment, climate, as well as biodiversity, right? So if you look at the SDGs, the application of this is climate justice, right? In terms of the three: environmental, climate, and biodiversity. There's a component of law which institutes climate justice, right? So climate justice, to the core, entails that the decisions that we make today, whether political, business, or investment, you must ensure that they're fair enough, that they do not affect the future generations, right? So now, if we're talking as we are, as the Commission, everyone has been talking about how do we invest. We must now ensure that we are investing responsibly in a way that it does not impede on the future generations' satisfaction of life, right? So, as a Commission, we have a CMMP, I think that's been referred to, and under the CMMP, we have a pillar that is speaking on developing new and innovative products, so under which we have recognized green financing and sustainable financing as one of the key outcomes of this. So now, as the Commission, what we're essentially looking to do in this regard is to promote policies and regulations that essentially speak towards developing new and innovative instruments that are more so aligned with green financing and sustainable financing. So the Commission has a green finance unit, and this is the mandate of the Commission, or the GFU, to basically propose policies that foster an enabling environment for Zambia to become a preferred destination for green investments. The second mandate is to engage with the public and private sector to raise awareness on greening and green financing through instruments like green bonds. The third mandate is to facilitate capacity building and linkages between parties in the green finance ecosystem. Sorry, I'm rushing through. So, in terms of the Green Finance Unit, some of the key things that we're working on is putting together a regulatory roadmap for nature-related risks. This is essentially in terms of us, the Commission, what is our desired destination in terms of where we want to get to. That speaks to our way of doing business and how are we going to achieve that. So this will essentially speak towards incorporating the risks pertaining to nature and climate, in the way that the Commission handles matters to do with investor protection, market development, and so forth. So this would be like a guiding document for the Commission. And then further to that, we are also working on scoping out renewable energy and business opportunities, essentially through a study that we did with Chemonics, where we'll ramp up efforts in terms of linking these projects to the desired financing. And then maybe if I can just, yes. So beyond the GFU, SEC Green Finance Unit, we are also working with what we're calling the Green Finance Ministerial Working Group. So the Green Finance Ministerial Working Group is essentially basically a consortium of different players in the market, public, private, as well as financial sector, coming together to ensure that the way we approach this green agenda is more cohesive, right, and more informed. So we have the participation of the three financial sector regulators, SEC, Bank of Zambia, PIA. Upon inception of the working group, basically the working group was founded as a tripartite memorandum of understanding. Upon its inception, we now had public sector players such as the Ministry of Finance, Green Economy, as well as Lands, who joined the working group. We also have ZICA, Zambia Institute of Chartered Accountants, the BWF, the UNDP Biodiversity Finance Initiative, as well as Prospero. The scope, as I mentioned, links to the other areas that I spoke about. The SEC is the secretariat to this working group. So we hold bi-monthly meetings every year, where the SEC convenes the different players to discuss all things green finance. What we're essentially looking to do, or rather our mandate in mainstreaming green finance, the idea is that the capital flows, they must have a symbiotic relationship with nature and climate. Basically, a mutually beneficial relationship with nature and climate. So by virtue of that, we're essentially mainstreaming green finance into the financial sector. So this mandate in itself, it speaks to Vision 2030, 8th NTP, and NBSAP, the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, the Green Growth Strategy and Implementation Plan, as well as the National Adaptation Plan, basically speaking on the linkages between the financial sector as well as the environment. And then, yeah, these are just some of the initiatives you might want to take a picture in terms of the things we're working on under the working group. We have the green bonds, green finance strategy, green finance tagging and reporting framework, the green loans agenda. I know you guys are aware of just loans from the banking sector. We're now looking to introduce green loans. The only difference is essentially the user process. No more green loans do not stipulate what you use the loans for, right? But this is more so like a guided sort of stance, you know, in ensuring that the funds that you are claiming you want to use for the environment, they are essentially green. Basically, they use the process. Same thing in regards to the green bonds as well. I'm sure you've heard of the corporate bonds, the government bonds, and you name it. Those do not have a stipulation of what you use the financing for, right? By virtue of that, you stand the risk of using financing for a negative, or rather a project with a negative environmental impact. So now, by virtue of calling it green, what we're saying is, this bond, the use of the proceeds, need to be used towards environmentally positive projects. That is, same applies to the green loans as well. So for this, on the green bond side, this is being led by the Securities and Exchange Commission with the technical assistance of the UNDP Biodiversity Finance Initiative. This began in 2018. We raised awareness, sensitization, incentives lobbying, where we were able to get exemption of the 15% investment on green bonds for this tax, right? And then we also had a reduction in SEC registration fees by 50%. And then we also had the elephant in the room with the CC Copperbelt Energy Corporation green bond, the inaugural green bond in Zambia, which was a program of about $200 million US. So the process for this, the intention is that they must be used on a project with a positive environmental impact. So by virtue of calling it renewable energy, the implication is that it has a positive environmental impact. And then they put out 2 tranches, which were both fully subscribed. And then further to that, in this Green Bond Market Development Initiative, we are also looking to provide technical hand-holding support to 5 potential green bond issuers relating to all matters pre-issuance activities. And then also we put together a gap analysis, which also brings out the weaknesses in Zambia's green bond market, so that we can double down efforts in developing a robust green bond market in Zambia. And then we're also looking to put a green investment portal, which will provide linkages between projects that need financing, green financing, as well as the available financing, whether in Zambia or outside of Zambia. So this will be basically embedded on the SEC website, and then it should make it easier to, for money and projects to meet each other, right? What we're trying to do by virtue of doing that is that there's a significant gap as it pertains to fulfilling these strategies and documents on a national level. So this gap also technical as well as financial. So in the financial end, you might all agree that on the public sector budget, it's a very lean budget. So we don't have enough finances to achieve most of this. So as a result, we've come to the financial sector through the capital markets from SEC, the banking sector in terms of loans and other, pensions and insurance authority, to see how we can mainstream green finance in a way that we close the financing gap for environment as well as biodiversity and climate. And then we're also looking to put together a taxonomy. As if I may ask you, what is a green project, right? As I mentioned, it's a project with a positive environmental impact, right? But then again, can you identify which one is a green project? I think it's not easy to do that right now because we don't have a criteria of what is green in the country. So the taxonomy is essentially meant to sort of eradicate that ambiguity, right? So that it makes it easier for you to go to a bank, giving out green loans, for me who's looking to issue a green bond, to access green financing by matching my project versus this criteria, which sort of stipulates what is green in the where the sectors, in the mining sector, agricultural sector, energy, forestry, tourism, transport, and the circular economy. This can be used by, we're talking, for instance, the SMEs with projects, the civil society in terms of advocacy for environmental initiatives, donors and international organizations as well. So with this, we've developed a full draft. We did a validation workshop for it, and then it's yet to be finalized as a document. And then also, this, I think I just spoke about the green bond. I see Stella was looking at me, so I think let me stop here for the sake of time.
Yes, please.
All right. I'm not sure if there's any quick questions.
Any questions for Chama? Okay, one question. Yes.
So how does the key players, maybe the SEC, the Bank of Zambia, and the BIA make sure that the people who are accessing the green loans or the green bonds are adhering to the instructions that have been stipulated in the...
Yeah, adhering to what?
They are adhering to the rules and regulations that have been stipulated in the MOU that was signed among the three.
They are adhering to the rules in the MOU.
They are adhering to the regulations.
Yeah.
Yes, they are adhering to the maybe regulations that have been assigned to them by the people given the green bond.
I'm not sure I'm getting your question.
I'm saying, how does
Yeah.
the key players,
Yeah.
since in the presentation we are quick, so
Yeah.
hopefully-
I'm sorry, it's Stella. Yeah.
Yes. How do the key players make sure that the people who are given the green bonds
Yeah.
adhere
Yeah.
to the instructions
Right.
given to them? Or
Okay.
do they have a follow-up that make sure that these green bonds which have been accessed have the positive impact on the environment?
All right. So I think we have a colleague of mine over there from market transactions who is a specialist in that regard. But since Zambia does not have a taxonomy in itself which stipulates what is green, there are other recognized taxonomies. We're talking, for instance, the EU taxonomy, South Africa's taxonomy, well, this is very national specific. There's also, I think there's a general taxonomy that is as a criteria. The Green Bond Guidelines, for instance, it does stipulate in terms of how do you sort of checklist and so forth, all right? And then again, there's what's within the guidelines. In Zambia, how do you, as an issuer, issue a green bond in the country? So it has like prerequisites that you need to meet. And amongst which is a second party review component where you take is a prospectus or whatever it is to an independent, licensed independent reviewer who can certify your project as green. And then you bring that certification to the SEC and yes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. How was that?
Great.
Huh? Very insightful. So now we've seen the other side. How many of you knew we did that as a? You didn't know, right? Yeah. So we are big on the climate change agenda, and we want to play a part. So our next presenter is coming from the market transactions unit. So they'll speak to you about what they do in market transactions and how they fit into the bigger picture of the sector. Mrs. Elsa, give her a round of applause, please. Just at 5 minutes so that we can let you guys go back to school.
People are looking tired. Is it tiredness or is it information overload?
Information overload. The overload.
Okay, so I'm going to overload you with some more information, but I believe that's why you're here, right? That's one of the reasons you're here, to get more insights about capital markets. and my colleagues have done a great job in explaining what we do as a commission, but I'm just going to add just a little bit more so that you can go back with something. So, as an introduction, my name is Elsa Pope. I work in the market transactions unit here at the SEC. I was advised by Sitali to say what I studied. So I studied economics at the University of Zambia. I also have other certifications, corporate finance, and further studies in economics. So basically, the market transactions unit sits in the finance and admin department. Thomas already gave us an overview of the structure of the institution, so I'll skip this. So what do we do as a market transactions unit? So this is the core functions. We're responsible for registration of securities as well as authorization of funds. We're responsible for approving corporate actions such as rights issues, splits, takeover transaction, all that corporate finance jargon. We are also responsible for the bond markets, including corporate bond markets, the government bond markets, as well as green bonds and other use of impressive bonds. And finally, we do a lot of research and data analysis, financial and economic data. Okay, so one of our core functions as a unit is the registration of securities and authorization of funds. From the previous presentations, I'm sure you now know what securities are, right? Basically, there are two main types, two main categories. We've got equity securities and debt securities. So for an institution or an entity to offer securities to the investing public, those have to be registered by the Commission, and that's what we do. So similarly, to registration of securities, we also authorize funds. My colleagues also spoke about collective investment schemes, right? Mutual funds. So we also authorize funds. So a fund is basically pooling of monies which are then invested by a professional with the objective of growing that money and giving a return. So before that fund is offered to the investing public, it will have to be authorized by the Commission. And that's what we do. So how we do that is by reviewing applications from the different entities, and this is a lot of documents, and I mean a lot of documents. So we take our time to review that. We look at the entity, who this entity is, who are the directors. We also evaluate the prospectus. I know you guys are business majors, economics majors, so we know what a prospectus is, right? No? What are you guys learning? Okay. Yeah, a prospectus is basically a marketing document, right? If a company is going to the market to issue shares for the first time, it will do what is called an IPO, or an initial public offering, and it goes with the documents to show the investors that this is what we want to do. We're asking for your money, we intend to use it like this is who we are, and things like that. So we review all those documents as part of the application before we can process applications for registration. And as Thomas has indicated, our work is under, everything that we do is under the Securities Act. So we also have subsidiary legislation like guidelines and rules which we follow when we're doing this registration. So which ensure that the registration is compliant with the legal framework which we have in the Act. And this is important because during your introductions, you guys were saying, oh, I want to know how the state protects investors and things like that. So this is one of the key ways that we protect investors, right? If one entity can come to the market and get money from you, you have to ensure that this entity is fit and proper, that they can take your money, manage it, and grow it and give it back to you with the return. So this is one of the gatekeeping functions we do with the objective of protecting the investors. So this is the registration process. I won't go too much into it. It's basically a formal application that's made. We review the application as the market transactions unit. We then present this application to the market transactions committee, which then approves the application or not. So the process is similar for the authorization of funds. So here I just have a list of some of the securities which we have registered on the capital markets. At the far end there, you see a list of the equity securities which are listed. Currently, there are about 19, which are in different economic sectors. So there's the breakdown there. You find different economic sectors, like the banking sector. We have 2 banks there. The manufacturing sector, we have 7 entities from that sector. Other sectors only have one entity, like the mobile telecommunications, which only has Airtel, oil market, which has Puma, and Shell. Then we also have here a list of some of the authorized or registered debt securities. So here's the list of the corporate bonds. We have issuers like Bayport. I'm sure some of you have read about Bayport. We have IFC, that's the International Finance Corporation, which is the investing private sector arm of the World Bank, which has come to the Zambian markets to actually raise funds, right? We also have issuers like Israel, Zambia Home Loans, and Greece. On the green bond side, my colleague Chama spoke about green bonds. So green bonds is basically just the same as the ordinary bond. But the difference between a green bond and an ordinary bond is the use of proceeds. And so as part of the application, we have to ensure that this bond meets the specific requirements for it to be categorized or for it to qualify as a green bond. And so that's what we do there. We have one green bond program, which was registered by the CEC, and it was a very big one. I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about it, right? Yeah. Hopefully. No?
You don't know about the green bond? Has anyone heard about it?
I have heard of it.
Huh?
I've heard of it, but not really knowing what's everything about it.
But Chama, just from talking about it, he did.
Actually, it's a big one. We want the cheap.
So you better now research. After all this information that you've gotten here, continue reading, research more about these things, okay?
Okay. Yes, so these are the list of debt securities which we have registered on the market. We also authorized funds, like I spoke about, the different types of funds. We've got collective investment schemes, which are also known as mutual funds. It's where individuals put their money together, and the funds are managed by a professional fund manager, who then goes and invests this money in different securities. And then the profits or the losses are spread amongst the investors. So CISs, we currently have 11 authorized CISs. Then we also have what is known as real estate investment trusts, which is similar to a CIS, but the investments is in real estate properties, and their proceeds from the rentals are split amongst the investors. We have one. We also have 3 private funds, which we've authorized so far. And here, I just put this chart to just show you that for us, the CISs or the mutual funds is actually a growth area for the sake. So this just shows the composition of the investors in the market. About 92% of them coming from the CISs. And this is important to know because we've seen in the last 3 years a significant growth in the number of investors in CISs. And this has been fueled by technology. So as an investor, you're able to participate in the CISs using things like your phone, right? The USSD. And that's one way of improving or increasing that investor participation in the capital market. Here, we have corporate actions. So as a unit, we are responsible for the approval of corporate actions. So when we talk about corporate actions, we're just talking about any activity that has a resulting significant material impact on the institution or its stakeholders. And so some examples of corporate actions include things like rights issues or very, very large transactions. So transactions, we categorize them differently based on the value of the transaction. So we have what is called category 1 transactions, which is basically if a transaction is 25% of the value of the company. It means it's so big that it has to be approved. It has to go through different layers of approvals before a company can go through this. We have spent more time, but seeing I'm limited, I'll just brush through these things, right? Another corporate action which we also approve is a merger and takeover transaction. And this is important because it affects minority shareholders in the limited company. So we come in as the commission to make sure that if there's a takeover or controlling interest in the listed company, then the appropriate rules have to be followed, minority shareholders have to be given an option, and things like that, right? So, on the corporate bonds, I've already spoken to you about corporate bonds, how many we have currently on the market. So currently we actually have about 5.3 billion kwacha in outstanding corporate bonds. So the market it's growing, right? So what we do as a unit, we monitor this corporate bond borrowing and repayments. Because essentially what a corporate bond is just an entity borrowing money and then using it and then promising that they'll pay it back to you. But we make sure that this company is actually adhering to those agreements. Are they paying the investors at the right stipulated times? We have to make sure that that is followed. We also require them to adhere to ongoing obligations, making quarterly submissions, and just monitoring their debt levels, ensuring that they're still in a position to pay back what they owe. We also just do this to keep track of the debt issuances and to make sure that we have accurate records of our market. In addition to the bond market reports, we also have oversight over the secondary market for government bonds. You know that the primary market is where the government floats bonds for the first time. But on the secondary market is where the people who bought from the primary market now trade amongst themselves. So we have oversight and to promote transparency in the market, which is one of our objectives. We do publish the activity on the market on a daily basis. This is just one of our reports, I think yesterday, just shows you the amount of activity that's happening on the market. And then in addition to that, the other things that we do, research, as well as compilation of economic and financial data, which is used for decision making. We provide input into various reports at ministry level, and as well as external entities such as the Committee for Securities and Non-Banking Financial Authorities, CISNA, the Financial Stability Committee, which Mr. Chandra spoke to earlier, and just different outlets. This is some of the things that we do. So essentially, that's what the Market Transactions Unit does at the Commission. It was a very short presentation, but I hope it gives you at least some insights as to what we do. So at this point, I'll take 2 questions, if any.
Question is, do you pay taxes on capital gains? So, what is the procedure about what's motivated by the fluctuations of prices? What you initially invested, let's say, it's a share or so. Given an example of what's happening at the times, we saw a drop of maybe 12% in the NYSE. So, how would you tax fluctuating prices?
We don't necessarily tax fluctuating prices. And I also tell you that usually the notion that people have is that if I bought shares on, for example, Airtel at 12 kwacha, and the price goes to 9 kwacha, people think that they have made a loss, right? But that's not necessarily true, because you only make a loss if you sell that share, right? So if you sell that share, then maybe you might make a loss. But if you hold on to that share, then you have not necessarily made a loss. And so in that case, a tax wouldn't be applicable, isn't it? But I'll just ask my colleagues from either enforcement or supervision to just ask if our stocks here are subject to capital gains. I don't think they are, but I just need clarity from them. Yeah. So in this jurisdiction, capital gains tax is not applicable. Yeah. No. Do we have any other question? Okay, then in that case, I guess my presentation was very clear. Or maybe you're confused, like my friend here. Confused. Yeah, okay. Then thank you so much for your attention and have a good rest of the day.
Okay, thank you, Elsa. Okay, thank you so much, guys. I know you paid a lot of attention and you're obviously tired and hungry. Our last presentation, if you notice the structure, the organogram that Elsa was showing, those finance and admin, where market transactions was falling, right? So in order to do what we do, all the way that we do, we need finance, right? To finance our projects. I think there's even a question on how we, in your expectations, I think someone did mention how we fund the stuff we do and stuff like that. So I'll invite Teresa, who's from the Finance and Accounts Department, to just take us through what they do. To be very brief, then we can break. Okay?
Good afternoon, everyone. Are we hungry? Or tired?
The finance person, talk to her nicely, she might buy
Talk to me. I'll buy you lunch. So my name is Teresa from the Finance Department. My presentation is going to be very brief, as mentioned. We accountants don't talk too much. When we go forward, will be done in 2 minutes. So, I need a password. Sorry. So I'm here to talk about finance and administration. So I'm basically going to just go through because my colleagues have already explained most of the details that happen at the commission. So I will just give an overview of the Directorate of Finance, the structure, and the finance department. So, as my colleagues have already maybe explained this, the commission was established by an act of parliament in 1993, and in 2016, this was replaced and repealed by another act, Act 41. So the commission has a dual mandate. I'm sure you've been hearing my colleagues mentioning about market supervision and market development. So that's the Commission's main mandate, to supervise the capital markets and also to develop it. So this is in order to ensure that customers are treated fairly and also there's effective supervision in the capital market, and also encourage market development at an individual level and also national level, mostly at the national level. More capital, I'm sure we all know, the more capital you have, the more things you can do, even at the personal level. So the mission, our mission as the SEC is to have a capital market that can provide a safe and secure environment to ensure that parties can raise capital, at the end of the day, protect investors, especially in this day and age of so many Ponzi schemes that have been roaming about. So the Commission, in order for it to carry out its mandate, the Parliament appointed a board which includes 7 members. So of those 7 members, they come from different institutions. There's PIA, pensions, Ministry of Finance, from all these prominent institutions. Those are the people that sit on the board. So those are the carriers of the thing. So at the end of the day, this board now breaks down to committees. So for the board members to carry out their duties, they appointed smaller groups called committees. We have the market transaction committee, licensing committee, risk and audit committee. There's also the compensation fund committee, all those. So about 5 of them. And their main objectives are to ensure that investors are protected, there's efficient, fair and transparency in the markets in order to reduce risk. So the commission, the board, I indicated that there's a board that runs the committee. There's a board, there are subcommittees, and then from the subcommittees, there's now the employees of the state who do the running up and about of in order to carry out the duties and the activities of the commission. So we are employed by those committees, and then from the staffing of the commission, we have from the top, we have the CEO, and then we have directors. We have about 3 directors. So my colleagues had mentioned the 3 directorates. So from the 3 directorates, we have directors, except the Directorate of Finance. So we have director from DMST, Market Development, director legal, and also, 2 directors actually, not 3, 2 directors. So under these departments, enforcement, they are now employees. We have managers, officers, where we all fall under in order to carry out this mandate. So I won't draw much on market supervision and development. My colleagues have already done a good job from enforcement as well. So under finance and administration, there's also market transaction, which my previous colleague was just explaining their functions and what they do, which is some of which are registrations and whatnot. And then finance falls under support services. So these support services are for the commission, nothing to do with licensing and whatnot. So it supports services to ensure that the commission runs smoothly. People from market development have the funding they need for their activities to go and conduct their awareness, and the legal department also have the necessary resources that they need. So we are basically the fuel of the commission, in short. So for them to, like I mentioned, for them to carry out all these activities, they'll need support from the finance department. We are in charge of financial reporting, funding as well. The commission receives funding from government, part of it. As I mentioned, the commission was formed by an act of parliament. So we receive funding from the Ministry of Finance. That's where part of our funding comes. And then the remaining of the funding, actually most of it, comes from things like licensing, inspections, of which we charge fees, and also bond commissions. So that's where most of our funding comes from, in order for us to run all these activities and for the commission to run smoothly. So who are we supervising? Like I mentioned earlier, the government of the Republic of Zambia is the policy maker. They made this policy through parliament when it was formed by an act of parliament. And then the SEC is the regulator. So we regulate institutions, we regulate issuers, capital markets, investors, exchanges, brokers, dealers, and investment advisors, representatives, collective investment schemes. My colleagues had given a good breakdown of all these things I'm mentioning, of all these that are falling under all these that I've mentioned here, who the institutions that we supervise. So, what is the role of the capital markets in the economy, in the economy of Zambia? So the capital markets, they help transform the economy and also ownership in that it helps reduce poverty at a personal level. And also the capital markets, that's where the government raise funding for their various projects, which results in a stable fiscal environment. And it also provides funding for infrastructure funding, commodity trading, and also it's a platform for optimal returns of statutory funds, such as taxes. It's also a platform where small enterprises grow their businesses because they're able to access funding from various institutions. So there have been positive developments that the Commission has recorded since the enactment, since it was established. So in 2016, like I mentioned, there was the enactment of the Act number 41, and also as of now, the Commission is a member of IOSCO. This is an organization for all securities in the world, securities exchanges in the world. So we're now a member, so we're able to leverage from this membership in order to, enhance on our mandates. So there are few constraints that we have also noted in the few years. Those are due to the low numbers of listed entities, and there's also delay in enacting legislation. As you know, it has to come from all the way Parliament, all the way down for legislation to be effective. There is also the perception of lack of safety in the capital market. As I mentioned, the Ponzi schemes and whatnot, of which a lot of people are being duped. Most of them, they're offering exorbitant returns. So if it's too good to be true, just stay away, rather than lose your money. So in conclusion, there are a number of capital markets enablers that's right and suitable for financial inclusion, in that they facilitate long-term finance, which is cheaper. Long-term financing, this can be for either banks, ventures, and SMEs, MSMEs, all those. They're able to access funding, and then also gives access to alternative savings, from which we have all been encouraged. We need to start saving like yesterday, because once you save, tomorrow you will have that funding that you will need, whether to further your studies or whatever it is that you're planning on waiting. And also it facilitates job creation, both in rural and urban Zambia. So there's so many success stories that have stepped out of the capital market that need to be broadcasted. It's not just about the Ponzi schemes where people are, lost their money, but there are a number of successful stories, especially if you invest in a registered investment institution. So we are all taxed and also encouraged to, participate in the capital market in order for us to create wealth and see a better tomorrow. So, who doesn't want money? That's why we work, or that's why we go to school, so that we become something in the future, so that we achieve our goals, of course, right? And we're able to meet our basic needs at the end of the day. So thank you very much. That was my very short presentation. Class dismissed. Any questions?
Any questions for Teresa?
Yes,
Apart from the Ministry
Your
of
name,
Finance,
please?
Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Apart from the Ministry of Finance and getting money from the license that you give out to people, do you have any other sources that you rely on to fund your activities, your daily activities as a commission?
We also collaborate with other institutions who we partner with on various activities, like the green department. That's funded by the green department has its own funding. So even like the gentleman from the one who was doing the presentation, they're not paid from the commission. So, but they're working under. So we have such partnership, and we also have partnership with other. They come in, they make contributions for some awareness campaigns. They give us contributions. That's where we get.
Yes.
Oh yes.
So, you have been the presentation, my question is like in general.
Okay.
So, with the various things that you have in place, the various incentives to educate people on I just want to know, what's your level of satisfaction with the returns that you have as a commission, the increasing rate of people that are investing in the level of people that are using, are you satisfied with that?
At the moment, maybe you can chip in.
So,
At the moment, we're still, that's why we have gone all out. Right now, study will give you a detail of what they're doing in the various districts. Awareness. Because the commission has realized that a number of people are not aware. That's why most people are being duped. And they're not aware of the capital market. They're not aware. They don't have financial education. So that's why we're going all out, but making progress.
Yeah. So if you got the classes presentation,